Who are some potential targets NHL in Utah should be looking for in the upcoming 2024 NHL Draft? We'll discuss on today's episode of Locked On NHL in Utah.
You are Locked On NHL in Utah, your daily podcast on all things hockey in Utah, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On NHL in Utah, your daily podcast on the NHL in Utah, all things hockey in Utah. I am your host, Robyn Leano. I've been covering the Arizona Coyotes organization for over 7 years. And with the relocation, I decided myself, hey, you know what? I'm going to keep covering this team using my knowledge to help all you guys, new Utah NHL fans. If you're a completely new fan, again, welcome in. If you have been following and just bringing in, I also welcome you guys back. We got a great show on today's episode. We are going to break down and take a look at potential picks that the NHL Utah team can target for the 2024 NHL Draft in Vegas, just in about a little over 6 weeks from now at this point. There's a lot to unravel when it comes to that. So many different names can be put on this list. It's a lot. It really is. And I will go ahead and start off, guys. I want to start off by saying this. We already know who number one is. I feel like every year it's always like we already know who number one is most of the time. This year, I think it's no question about it that Macklin Celebrini is going to be going number one. Once again, congratulations to the San Jose Sharks for getting their number one spot. What's interesting is it seems to me that there is a consensus that the numbers 2 through, let's say 10, 2 through 10 is a massive pot of talent that really could get swayed either way. A player who on some draft boards might be number 10, might be number 2 on another team's draft board or another scout's draft board or whatever it might be. And I think that's what gives it provides a unique opportunity for us to discuss a lot of different names and a lot of different kind of ideas of who NHL Utah can target for this upcoming draft. Now, the good thing is we're not on a completely blank slate here, because NHL Utah has General Manager Bill Armstrong still as their GM. And Bill Armstrong built much of the last few years of the Arizona Coyotes. So we can use a little bit of what we know from his previous picks as a template to understand of what he might be thinking in his head come in about 6 weeks from now. We got it's coming up pretty fast, guys. So let's start off by saying that. Let's take a look at those players. And for the sake of just continuity here, I won't specifically exclude. I will mention this player's name. But Logan Cooley, we already know he was drafted 3rd overall in 2022. And he was going to be that guy. I feel like everyone predicted he was going to be the pick for the then Arizona Coyotes at that time, because it was a no-brainer decision. Best skilled player out there, no matter what no matter what. But past that, you had a lot of thinking and a lot of decisions really gave you an idea of what Bill Armstrong was about. In that year alone, first-round picks, or even you load a second, third-round picks, you can mention some of those as well, just a couple of those. But some names I already had on the docket I want to mention that to make that comparison template, right? To make that comparison template. So in 2022, first round picks, you had Connor Geekie and Maverick Lamoureux. And in just last year, in 2023, Dmitry Shimashev and Daniel Boot. Let's take a look at some of their info. Once again, Logan Cooley was on there. I also just want to mention just a couple other player names, Artem Duda and Maximilian Zuber, just for a little bit of continuity purposes. But I want to focus on those four at first. Connor Geekie, we're looking at a forward, 6'4", 196 pounds. At least that's what it shows currently on Elite Prospects. I know he was a little bit smaller because he was a little bit younger when he first got drafted. But looking at a big player, a pretty big player. He's a forward, but you're looking once again at a, at size, and he's got a more defensive mindset as a forward because he's a center. He focuses on that. Maverick Lamoureux, a defenseman. If you saw the dude stand up when he got drafted in 2022, he is a big dude. Currently on Elite Prospects, again, a little bit dated now because at least it's up to date now, but then a little bit smaller, but still showing big size. 6'7", 214 pounds. That's for him as a defenseman. In the first round last year, you got Dmitry Shimashev, another defenseman, 6'5", 203 pounds. And later on in that first round, you got Shimashev's own teammate, a forward, Daniel Boot, 6'6", 216 pounds. What do all of these players have in common? Well, here's the first and foremost that I will give you guys a little bit of a hint. The very first thing that half of these players have in common is that they're defensemen. So 2 of those 4 are defensemen. I'll add Artem Duda in there real quick. Also, 6'1", 187 pounds, so a little bit smaller, but also a defenseman. Maximilian Zuber, another defenseman, 6'3", 201 pounds. So we're looking at getting the defenseman in there, but take a look at the size. I think that's the big thing. I'm not saying, hey, we get drafting a lot of defensemen, so let's not focus on that. I'm actually saying the opposite as this one. I feel like defensemen are the hardest to develop. You try to get as much as you can because last thing you want to get too complacent. It's like, oh, we got enough defenseman prospects. We don't. It's really true. The Arizona Coyotes do not have enough defensive prospects. They don't even have enough really strong defensive roster players. So that's something that they really need to focus on. But I'd also want to, once again, put out on what all of these players have in common mostly is size. All well over 6, not I wouldn't say well over, all over 6 feet, within around that 200 plus range, plus or minus a couple of them are a little bit less than 200, but really to make, call it, nickel and dime here, whatever term you want to look for. My brain's not, thinking, not clicking on the exact term I want to use for that one. Nitpicking, or that's a better term. You're not nitpicking here of, the ones, for example, like Connor Geekie, who's 193, for example. We're not really looking at a whole lot of that. But you're taking a look at what they do and what they're known for. Is, I think physicality. That is a huge bit of what Bill Armstrong wants. And I think that's why he wants size and what's focusing on size is to, get these guys to be physical. Obviously, they had to have a little bit of a physical template to them before getting drafted because he's not going to pick up a skill player who's like 6'9", but can't, won't use his body to his advantage and has some struggles. I'm not saying he won't, but that's just not the Bill Armstrong way. That is not the Bill Armstrong way. So those are the 2 things that we are looking for right now. We're looking at defensemen. Consider defensemen first because they've been lacking there. However, when it comes to the players I will be looking at in today's episode, some of them will not be defensemen, because you know what? If it comes to a certain player like that being like that I can mention being available, take that opportunity. You absolutely take that opportunity, because that is what you want to see for a draft that's around here. You get a next best available if that player is available, and if that fits that mold, if it fits what you're looking for specifically. All right. Well, what we're going to do is after a quick break, we are going to talk about, those players I want to do. So I'm going to break it down a little bit. I'm going to talk about a couple of the players, and then maybe later on, maybe a wild card player, and then a reach player. So target players, a wild card player, and a reach player. We're going to get to that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA, NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. I know I bet on a future a while back to pick the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup. That was back last summer or whatever it was, because I thought, hey, you know what? Good value. FanDuel is the place to make those bets. FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let's continue things right here on Locked On NHL in Utah as we discuss who the NHL Utah team will be selecting, or could be targeting. There we go. Could be at least targeting come the NHL Draft in Vegas this June. At the end of June, June 28th, I believe, June 28th is the day of the draft. If you are a Coyotes fan and you're listening, if you're still following, I know a lot of you guys are focusing on the day before for a very specific reason. I know you guys super well. Anyways, but let's get to talk about the draft. And these are in no specific order. These are just players that I kind of just took out of a hat, of what I think can be a possibility here. I want to start with Sam Dickinson, because Sam Dickinson is rated higher than where NHL Utah could be selected. I feel like he's looking right now number 4 on consolidated rankings. He's 8 by Elite Prospects, so that could give the opportunity for NHL Utah. 6 by Draft Prospects Hockey, 8 by Smart Scouting. So all over the place, around that range, Sam Dickinson kind of fits that. You look at his size, he's 6'3", 194. What do I'm saying? That fits the bill. Dickinson with the London Knights this last season got in 68 games played, 18 points, 52 assists for 18 goals, 52 assists for 70 points, not including the playoffs where he got 12 points in 17 games. He can fit that mold. I've been reading on a couple of things that he's not afraid to use his body and get physical in there. What was I saying earlier? Bill Armstrong loves that kind of player. If Dickinson happens to fall at number 6, and Bill Armstrong is on the clock, take that opportunity. Absolutely take that opportunity, because that is what we're looking for in a player. So there's an option right there, Sam Dickinson. And here's one where it goes a little bit different, kind of in a different way. Size, yes. Looking at Caden Lindstrom, because he's got the size. He's 6'4", 216 pounds. All the info I'm getting for these prospects is from EliteProspects.com. Ranked number 5 by consolidated ranking. Number 3 by Elite Prospects for Caden Lindstrom. Number 4 by scouting. So he's a little bit higher than where Utah will be selecting. And he's a forward. So this is a little bit of a less likely situation. But once again, you look at his size and you look at his track record, got a little bit of a physical edge to him, a little bit more skill than that side. You can use that. Bill Armstrong can use that to his advantage. I feel like there's a lot. You have to look a lot more into it, and certainly, absolutely, certainly, I will consider looking at bringing in prospect experts to evaluate these players alongside me, because I am no way consider myself a prospect expert. I know this team very well, the team that we are covering, NHL in Utah. They were the Coyotes. I've known this team. These prospects, I've got it, and know at least a little bit about them, but I'm just giving you the info that I have heard and that I have been able to gather. Prospect experts will be able to help you guys out there, and I will bring those experts on throughout the next 6 weeks to help evaluate these players that I'm looking at, right? Specifically these players. I feel like these are the ones that can definitely consider for draft for NHL Utah team. Cole Yzerman. I feel like that is a name that has been moved around a lot. So many. I think I was actually talking with a friend of mine, and they're like, "Hey, do you think?" At the time, this was before the relocation. It was like, "Hey, do you think the Coyotes, of course now Utah, should select the Yzerman kid?" And I'm like, or what did he didn't even say that. He was like, "What do you think of the Yzerman kid?" And I'm like, I actually haven't got a chance to take a look at him yet. And I looked at his info. He's like, okay, he fits a little bit of the bill. 6 foot though, 196. I'd say a little bit more on that slight underside, closer to the undersize for the Bill Armstrong mold. But he's one of those players where if he's available, and if many of the other players that we're mentioning here is already taken, if Lindstrom's gone, if Dickinson's gone, if some of the other players that I'll mention coming up are gone, then I feel like, okay, maybe we can go away from that. Maybe this is a player to take. And I'm not saying by any means that Yzerman is like a fallback player, because he would be a phenomenal player for Utah, just not exactly the Bill Armstrong type. So maybe you're not going to get that, but it's certainly a possible target. Should things go differently. All right, let's get into a little bit more interesting ones here. There's one more player I want to reach before I get to my wild cards and a reach player. I want to talk about this player. I've been wanting to talk about this player because this player has been on my radar for at least a little bit longer, because I felt like, okay, this player fits the Bill Armstrong mold, much like Sam Dickinson does, kind of fits that with the size and the physicality and him being a defenseman. Very similarly, are we getting that with Anton Silayev? We got another guy. This guy coming in from Russia. He's 6'7", 207 pounds. That is your Bill Armstrong type player. 6'7", 207 pounds. That is a big dude. At around 18 years old, born in April of 2006. Good God, I should not have looked at that. Ranked number 7 by Consolidated Rankings, number 2 by Bob McKenzie. So could really be up there for some. Number number 12 by Dauber prospects, number 9 by elite prospects. So it's kind of, and as I'm looking, when once again, this really goes to show you that a lot of these players kind of float between 2 and 10, kind of very interchangeably, very easily, because past Macklin Celebrini is a big pot of question marks. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like, okay, you got Celebrini, and then you got everybody else. This draft is nowhere, it's not like so much previous drafts, because some previous drafts are like, hey, you could never, there's like, it was such a deep draft that you could, who knows what the case could have been. This is also a relatively deep draft. Some of these players could very well become top NHL players. Anton Salayev, I think, I was reading some info on him. I actually just saw that it was right before I started recording this episode that The Athletic wrote an article, and it was titled "Anton Salayev is no longer a secret." I mean, at least the first sentence of it. Expected to be a top 5 pick after having one of the best 17-year-old seasons in KHL history. The dude's playing in the KHL right now, not the MHL, but the KHL. So you're getting a player who's got the experience at a closer to a professional level. And I want to bring this up. There is a couple things. I'm looking at some quotes from some of these players. Looking at a article from, or at least an analysis from Corey Pronman about 2 months ago, where it says his offensive play won't blow you away, but it's good enough to move pucks in the NHL. He can provide enough of the puck to go to elite defensive play to be a potential number 1 defenseman one day. You got Steven Ellis from the Daily Faceoff, again, about 2 months ago. 6'7" blue liner, averaging just under 20 minutes a night while blocking shots, landing hits, and showing off great skating for his size. That is a Bill Armstrong mold, and I feel like in my head, and I think if everything is going how I think it will, I feel like Salayev will probably, could very well be that pick that Utah picks at number 6. What we're going to do, though, is coming up, I'm going to bring up a wild card. I'm not going to necessarily say this player is going to get drafted by Utah. They probably will not, but I feel like this could be a really wild card, very interesting decision, as well as a reach, someone who I don't think will fall, but if they do, pick up this player ASAP. We will do that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk you through it. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, they may not come with you if you leave your job. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who have found their best fit for their needs. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes to see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. Let's continue things right here on Locked On NHL in Utah. Once again, I am Robyn Leano as we discuss potential targets for this Utah NHL team for the next draft, coming in just a little over 6 weeks from now, June 28th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. who can Utah pick at number 6? And once again, as I mentioned, we will bring in prospect experts to break these players down, even more than just the players maybe that I provided, because there is a lot to be said about a lot of these players from 2 to 10 and beyond, who Arizona could pick, who Utah can pick. A lot of you guys got to stick with me. I'm going to probably be making some mistakes like that for a little bit. Who Utah can pick past even the first round. We'll get to that. Obviously within those next 6 weeks, we'll try to get to that. But I want to talk really quickly, guys, about a potential wild card player, because I feel like those. I feel like it'd be a really just fun story. I think that's all I can mention. It's just gonna be a fun story. So one of the potential top 10 picks, I'll list them as a top 10 pick. Number 6 by Elite Prospects are right at that range for Utah. Number 9 by Smart Scouting, 17 by Dobber Prospects, 16 by McKinley, so a little bit lower. I am talking about Tija Ginla. Now, some of you longtime NHL fans listening to that last name, you very well know what that last name means in the NHL. The son of Jerome Ginla, a longtime NHL player, who kind of bounced around, never played for the organization that Utah was a part of. So the Utah or the Coyotes or the Jets, or whatever. He was mostly well known, I believe, for his time with the Calgary Flames. But another player who kind of transcended much of those years in the 2000s and early 2010s, even a little bit so. Much like for those Coyotes fans that are still listening, much like Shane Doan did for the Winnipeg Jets and Phoenix/Arizona Coyotes. Do you remember who the Coyotes drafted just a couple years ago in Shane Doan's kid, Josh Doan? You can imagine you have another situation where you can draft another player who is the son of a player who transcended that time period in the NHL, both on the same team for NHL in Utah. Having just kind of the thought process, it'd be kind of an interesting one. Think about, just for a brief moment, of Tija Ginla and Josh Doan on the same team. Just that's all I'll say. Just think about it. He's a forward, 6 foot, 185 pounds, a little undersized for the Bill Armstrong mold. But you know what? I mean, I feel like it can still work. He can still potentially do something. Had a really good season with Kelowna for the Kelowna Rockets, 84 points in 64 games, 47 goals, 37 assists, not including his 15 points in 11 games in the WHL playoffs. So very well a worth consider looking at him. I don't think that Utah will pick him, but I mean, it certainly is one that you can just consider. Let's get to the reach. This is a lot of people. He's like, all right, I want to know who you think is the reach. Artem Levshunov, defenseman. So once again, fits one of the target positions that I am discussing here. Looking at defensemen, I think, is very key for Utah, and I feel like, really, to be honest, some of the players I mentioned even previously probably won't get picked, because I really think that a defenseman will get picked by this Utah team. Bill Armstrong will draft a defenseman. That seems to be my personal belief, as well as a lot of other people's personal beliefs about that. Not only is a defenseman 6'2", 209 pounds, so he fits the physical mold too, the big, potentially physical mold. He's a right shot defenseman. As I know, a lot of you guys have made that discussion in the past. It's like, hey, right shot defensemen are always heavily sought after. So why not continue that? And why not try to go after that? Looking at his history back in 2022, 2023 with USHL, the Green Bay Gamblers, 42 points in 62 games, 13 goals, 29 assists for Michigan State University. So he went to college this last season. So he's got a lot, the next, quote, next level experience. 35 points in 38 games, 9 goals, 26 assists. Certainly a player that you can look for. Number 3 on consolidated rankings. Number 4 by Elite Prospects. Number 3 by Bob McKenzie. Number 5 by Craig Button. The lowest that I see him ranked right now is number 10 by Recruit Scouting, followed by number 9 by FC Hockey and Dauber Prospects. Just about I'm going to read, like, I won't say specifically which ones, but once again, I will show you. I'll just list all the draft numbers and give you an idea. Number 3, number 4, number 3, number 5, number 6, number 4, number 7, number 2, number 9, 3, 2, 3, 5, 3, 10, 9, 4, 7. So all within that top 5 range. That number 6 kind of peeks out to me. That number 7 too by McKean's Hockey. So it is certainly a possibility. However, I really don't think he's going to fall to number 6. I feel like Lev Shunov is probably going to be a number 3 pick or a top 3 pick in this upcoming draft. But that is my personal belief. I mean, some of these other ones, like I feel like looking towards like Lindstrom can be a top 3 pick. Dickinson can be a top 3 pick. But those can be, but I have a feeling that that Levshunov has a much higher chance of being a top 3 pick, just given a lot of the info that's been coming out about this kid. So certainly something to look for. Heck, I will say, if he falls to number 6, take him, Bill Armstrong. I'm probably not listening to this, Bill, but if you are, take him. I want to know who you think the NHL Utah team should select. Who should the NHL Utah team select in this year's draft? 6 weeks from now, a lot to decide. Am I wrong? Do you think that I am wrong that they should they should focus on selecting a defenseman? Do you think that they should go for a skill player rather than the big physical guy? Do you go against the Bill Armstrong style? Do you think that, hey, you should just break away from that? Who knows? What I want to know what you think. Who are some players you think that Utah should target? And maybe some of those suggestions that I will bring out to the some of the individuals, those prospect experts who we have been used to bringing on to the previous iteration of the show, Locked On Coyotes, and talking about, hey, this is what this player is like. Certainly something to look forward to as we do continue that tradition here on Locked On NHL in Utah. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Hope you guys like what you heard. If you did, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube, SiriusXM, ad-free on Amazon Music. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnNHL in Utah. We are on X, still currently at LO_Coyotes. That is due to change pretty soon, but if you're listening to this on Tuesday, May 14th, that is still currently where we are. So follow us there if you have yet to already. I am at Robyn_Leano. That's Robyn with a Y_LEANO. You can interact with us, ask us any question. We might answer right back or in a future episode of the Locked On NHL in Utah podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you guys next time.